Hello and welcome to the fifth episode of the second season of YASP, short for Yet Another Shitty Podcast. I'm Amir Reza, joined by my great co-host,
Yes.
Ali. And
hello, everyone.
yeah, and we also have a guest, Mohammad, who was with us on the what episode? What's that, Ali?
Season 1, Episode 3, Borderlands, and Rick and Morty, which was. If you haven't listened to that, go listen to that. That's the one where we shit all over Rick and Morty fans.
Yeah.
As it's our customary,
Yeah, it's a ritual. We always have to shit on something on every episode. We have to piss off one demography in every episode.
Of course. So yeah, Mohammad, say hello.
Yeah. I'm happy to be back again on yet another shitty podcast.
Thank you.
Yet another shitty episode.
And in yet another shitty episode.
Yeah.
Well, today's episode is going to be on something very important that I don't know anything about.
Yeah, well, I guess we're going to have another episode. The person who's not going to know anything about on that episode is going to be me. But today, Ali will be mute most of the time. He will not have anything to add to the conversation, thank God. Because I'm sure if he had played like 2 Zelda games, he would be all over the place. He would call one of them the greatest creation of all mankind and the second one the shittiest creation of all mankind. You know how divisive his opinions are.
I mean, Skyrim is the best game ever made, so I don't know how it can top that.
Yeah, and Oblivion, apparently, I don't know, but I guess you think Oblivion is the shittiest one?
No, Oblivion is not the shittiest one. Oblivion is the least interesting one. I like more of it. More.
Already divisive, already polar, already partisanship. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the legendary series of The Legend of Zelda.
Which, for those of you who don't know, Zelda is not the boy.
Yeah. The boy is not Zelda. That boy is called Link. Zelda is a princess that you're trying to... You're not technically say... No, you're not trying to... Oh my God. Could you please... Would you have made this episode family friendly for 5 more minutes before you said the F word? F-bomb?
No.
Okay. No, we're not trying to... We're not trying to sleep with Zelda. Like...
I mean, you're not trying to sleep with Zelda, but
you can't sleep with Zelda in any
0
official.
Out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a good game then.
I mean, there are fan games probably. I don't know.
There are definitely fan games and hentai and all that. Fan fiction, everything. For that, you have Google. But in the games... the ones that Shigeru Miyamoto has created, there's none of that.
Well, maybe it's time we give one to David Cage. I'm just saying.
Oh my God, please don't torture me with that sentence. Like, oh my God, what would happen to this series if... Imagine dungeons in a David Cage game.
Yeah, it's about the emotions you get. It's about the emotional dungeons.
Oh, Jesus.
I mean, now that you mention it, it's kind of interesting. I don't know.
It's going to be the worst game ever, but it's definitely going to be something we're going to talk about for years and years to come.
Yeah, it's going to be immortal in shittiness. That is going to be immortal.
Anyways, let's not deviate from the plan that we meticulously planned. First of all, for those of you who were wondering, why we didn't publish an episode last week, we postponed it a week.
Yeah.
And, the next episode will come out in, again, 3 weeks. It's not like...
No, we're not going to skip a week. And I'm sorry, the main reason that we didn't release an episode was me. I was having some personal problems. And, it was the holidays also. It's the Persian New Year.
Yeah. I mean, for those of you who don't know, our holidays doesn't start in January. It starts in March.
And another interesting fact, our weekends are not Saturday and Sunday. Our weekend is only one day, and it's Friday.
And there is the Thursday, which is a semi-weekend. Nobody does any works, but it's not officially a weekend.
Yeah, it's not officially a weekend. And at least not in other cities other than Tehran. In Tehran, it's kind of officially a weekend, but other cities don't have it.
Yeah. If for those of you who don't know, two of us are in Tehran and one of us is not. Me and Mohammad are in Tehran.
Don't dox me.
Yeah,
don't reveal my location. I live in a dungeon.
A sex dungeon?
No, I wish.
Normal dungeon. David Cage dungeon, probably.
Oh,
are there any killings there?
Come on, please. No, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to take the helm and switch back to Shigeru Miyamoto, who is the legendary creator of.
Before we get there, actually, that would be a good segue because you talked about dungeons, and first we need to talk about
Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, which I mean, what sort of rock you've been living under, Dungeons and Dragons is the classic tabletop role-playing game. Came out in the 1970s. It was basically, sort of an addition to a bunch of other board games that were quest-like.
Yeah.
But
none of them like so open and, basically
it
there's
evolved.
A very basic foundation in Dungeons and Dragons, and what can happen throughout the game is very much, endless possibilities.
Yeah, it's basically the world as you build it.
Yeah.
To quote Dan Harmon's Harmon Quest, it's like playing a video game, which we'll get to, but the processor is the mind of the dungeon master, the game master, the guy who builds the world.
I mean, I think the mechanics of this game, like the dice throwing and, the critical damage and, the shields, the armor. I mean, the foundation of every RPG game is in Dungeons and Dragons. And basically, any game that was developed, produced, and released in the 70s, 80s, text-based adventure games, quest games, whatever you want to call them, I think all of them wouldn't have existed without Dungeons and Dragons. And many of them were actually literally Dungeons and Dragons, but instead of you throwing a dice and calculating the chances and all that, the game would do that for you. So it was computer Dungeons and Dragons.
And I mean, there are a lot of other tabletop RPGs. I mean, my favorite one, the one that I actually read the rule books to, was Vampire Masquerade.
Which, how old is that one?
I think it came out in the 80s. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But a lot of the games are actually the Cyberpunk one was actually a tabletop RPG. Dungeons and Dragons birthed a whole bunch of games. You've played almost all of them if you play video games, but you haven't played with the pen and paper, which is something I actually kind of envy. I do like to play a bit of Dungeons and Dragons. I've never played it. Have you?
I'm planning on doing it, and if I did it, I will definitely let you know so we can do it together.
If you remember, we had a mutual acquaintance, I can say, Aras. Once upon a time, he suggested playing it, and we didn't though. So yeah.
Have you played it with anyone else though, Wama?
Sorta, yeah, but very limited, very basic.
I mean, how was it? How was the experience? It's like,
did it protect your virginity?
Yeah, it's definitely
did it elongate the virginity?
Ultimate way to protect,
remain a virgin. Nice.
Yeah.
The greatest virginity shield ever created.
I mean, I've seen a lot of. I've made terrain for it without ever playing it. I've made little foam houses.
Yeah,
for it.
those are even better virginity shields.
But yeah, D&D. By the way, I need to make a little tangent before we get to Shigeru Miyamoto, I know I butchered that pronunciation.
No, I think everyone should butcher that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. To be honest, I learned to pronounce people's name properly when they learn to pronounce my last name correctly, which no one can. If you are not in Iran, you cannot pronounce my last name.
Even in Iran, a lot of people mispronounce it. They, they read it as something else.
Yeah. But there is a movie of Dungeons and Dragons. The only reason I'm talking about it is because it stars my favorite actor of all time, Jeremy Irons. And if you haven't, definitely go watch this movie. It's made by New Line Cinema. It came out a year before they released, actually, they were already making it, The Lord of the Rings. And it's one of the funniest, stupidest projects ever. And Jeremy Irons is just hamming it up. He's so over the top. I love this movie. Definitely give it a watch. It's not good, but it's so bad that it's good, sort of like The Room.
Nice.
You can run, your ladyship, but you'll never run far enough. Let the blood rain from the sky.
This is the only tangent. Definitely watch that movie. Don't watch the sequels. I mean, the second one is boring. The third one is...
Oh, I didn't know there were sequels. Jesus.
Yeah, they were direct to DVD. So, it's not like masterpieces. But yeah, the first one actually got a theatrical release, if you can believe that.
Fantastic.
I mean, they are comparable with Lord of the Rings, so,
Yeah, of course.
I mean, of course.
They top it in so many ways.
I mean, it's definitely for those of you who are listening to this, you can email us, you can comment anywhere, or send us a voice message on Anchor if you want. But do tell us if you want us to do an episode on the Dungeons and Dragons movie. I will force Ami Reza to watch it. I will force Mohammad to watch it. We'll do an episode on it.
That's going to be a solo episode. I will not participate in that episode.
You have to. I will make sure.
Oh my God.
I will come
While we're on the subject of movies and TV shows, by the way, I think it's time to mention the Legend of Zelda. Is it an anime or a cartoon? What is it?
It's anime. I think it was made in the West, so it's not technically an anime.
There's a story actually behind that. Back in around early 90s, Philips CDI was a console, apparently. Philips made a console, and Nintendo sold their right to The Legend of Zelda in a way. Yeah. And that animated series is also a product of that partnership with Philips.
Oh my God. I think CGI Zelda games are the worst.
Yeah, which resulted in 3 of the worst games of all time. And of course, the famous line, "Excuse me, princess."
Yeah, that's a meme.
Yeah. So there's that. There are parts that aren't good about Zelda.
Yeah, Zelda is at a dark
I mean, I don't know if either of you have watched the TV show, the animated TV show.
No, I haven't. I've only seen the memes, like, "Excuse me, princess," only that.
Well, excuse me, princess.
I watched a couple of episodes after I watched the Nostalgia Critic video on it back in the day when Nostalgia Critic wasn't, cringe-inducing, I guess. But I watched a few episodes and it's really, really bad. I mean,
nice. I mean, what else would you expect?
Bad. I mean, I didn't thought this bad. I knew it was bad. I was going in imagining like Samurai Cop, but I got Dungeons and Dragons the movie.
Nice. Well,
that means you had fun, though. That's what's important.
That means this game is also immoral. Like, no one is going to ever forget this shit.
I doubt anyone. You shouldn't forget. It's kind of like I'm not going to say that it's like the Holocaust, but
Please don't make that comparison. Oh my God, we're gonna piss off a lot of people now. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah. I mean, we should piss off people. That's our agenda. But anyways, let's talk
also,
about
on the TV series. Sorry, one last note. There was a talk about a Netflix show. I do not know where that is at.
I hope it never gets made. I really hope with my life that it never gets made.
I mean, to be honest, Castlevania and Dragon's Dogma both had pretty good successes on Netflix.
No. Just no.
I wouldn't mind it if I am honest with you, but it's ultimately Nintendo and their stupid policies.
Thank you, Nintendo. Please don't do that. Please don't do what you did to Mario with Zelda. Please just leave it alone. Let it be a video game. Don't fuck it more than you already have in the past.
I mean, if it makes money, they're going to do it.
I hope they don't. Anyways, let's segue into Shigeru Miyamoto, the legendary creator of the Super Mario Bros. Game. Like, basically, many people claim, and I'm one of those people, that he's the most influential video game producer, creator, whatever you want to call it, designer of all time. Yeah, he's an industrial designer himself, and that's his degree. And I think that helped him create Super Mario Bros. In that sense. And to be fair, I don't only consider him one of the most the most influential video game producer. I also consider him one of the most influential people in the 20th and 21st century. Seriously, without him, life as we know it would actually be much different. Believe me, it would be much different than what it is now. Even in movies, in TV shows, in tabletop games, in everything. He's one of the most influential people living.
I mean, I'm not arguing with that. Even though I have a confession to make, I haven't played a Zelda game at all. Like,
it doesn't matter because any game you've played has been influenced by a Zelda or a Mario game. Any game you've played.
I mean, I know that in a sense it's like Citizen Kane, that even if you haven't watched Citizen Kane, you cannot really comprehend the history of cinema without Citizen Kane, because every movie ever is defined with its relation to Citizen Kane. And I know that's sort of like Mario and Zelda in video games, in the sense that no matter how much you like Skyrim, as I do, it wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Legend of Zelda, Mario, or even to some extent the much inferior Oblivion. I'm just trying to piss off Elder Scrolls fans. These are my people that I'm trying to piss off.
Yeah, you're trying to piss off everyone, man. It's okay. So we're not gonna talk about Super Mario Bros. I think everyone knows how important a figure Mario is in the world of video games. We're going to talk about Legend of Zelda today, specifically. Shigeru Miyamoto is 68 years old, and he released the first version of Legend of Zelda in 1986. That's how many years ago?
It's exactly the 35th anniversary of the series, which I thought was the occasion you were going to talk about Zelda.
Actually, I had that in mind, but that wasn't the reason. We didn't even know, but it's a good coincidence, I guess.
I mean, to be honest, we planned these episodes without even. I said to Amir, "What do you want to talk about?" He said, "I'm playing a bunch of Zelda games. Let's talk about Zelda."
Yeah, that was my peak Zelda gaming period. Like, I was playing 5 Zelda games simultaneously.
I mean, to peek a little bit behind the curtains, one of our episodes in the future is going to be about Saints Row. And it's only because I replayed Saints Row 3 while we were making the planning.
The schedule, the agenda.
Yeah, I mean, and it's all, luck that when we were recording our Mandalorian episode, the second season came out. And our next episode is going to be about South Park. The new South Park special just came out. We had no planning at all.
I mean, when you say it like that, it's not like you could be part of the Illuminati and know all this shit beforehand and,
Illuminati actually... Illuminati actually planted these ideas in our minds and heads. You see how that works. We're only puppets in the hands of the puppeteer.
We haven't even been vaccinated yet. We haven't had the Bill Gates microchip.
But we've had 5G towers, so they must have done something to our food.
Well, fuck you. Where have you had 5G towers? They are not in Iran.
There are actually. They're in Tehran, Kish,
Iran. Yeah. Iran is advertising it.
That was a precondition to let us import vaccines. They were like, if you don't have 5G towers, we're not going to give you any vaccines. And they were like, oh shit, we better get ready soon then.
I mean, I don't want to
Bill Gates was like, you either build those 5G towers or I'm not going to send you those nano microchips,
I mean, I don't want to make this political or something, but we are not even getting the fucking vaccines.
Okay, let's not talk about that. Fuck that. Vaccine is for pussies. Real men get COVID, either die or survive, and survival of the fittest. Okay. That's how real men work.
Yeah.
Anyhow, let's talk about Legend of Zelda. The first one, the defining one, released in 1986, is basically, if you've played any isometric Zelda game, like A Link to the Past, the Minish Cap, the newly remade one, Link's Awakening, they are almost all the same. Basically, top-down view of a world, a big world, and Zelda, can. And oh, by the way, Zelda, interesting thing, is one of the first non-linear open world video games. Like, it doesn't force you to go anywhere. You can take many different approaches. There are many things you can skip. These things were totally new. And the
correct me if I'm wrong. Is Zelda the first video game to have a save feature?
Exactly. I was actually going to talk about that. So, Zelda is the first video game to feature a save mechanism, let's call it. And it was in the cartridge. It was a battery. The cartridge has a battery, so it can save a state, basically.
That's probably the biggest revolution there.
And it made the cartridge actually much more expensive than the normal cartridges. But, it also made Zelda what it is. And you just...
made video games what they are. I mean,
it pushed video games into a new era with those saves. So, if you ever saved the game, it's thanks to The Legend of Zelda. Not that you wouldn't have gotten it without it, but it's just interesting that the first one is Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, and I mean, I haven't played the first one, but I have seen gameplay footage.
Yeah, basically every Zelda game is that Zelda in every game wakes up. He's always asleep.
It's
wakes
Link,
up.
Link, not Zelda.
Yes, even I make that mistake. Link.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes Zelda wakes up, so it's
it technically could be true.
Yeah.
At some point, Zelda wakes up. She
sleeps and wakes. Oh my god! Please. Anyhow, Link wakes up, and you are introduced to a vast, unknown world that you know nothing about, and you gotta just get a shield, get a sword. Two, iconic features of every Zelda game. You got a shield, you got a sword, you got a Link who's an elf with a green tunic. In some games, you can have other tunics like red ones, blue ones that do something for you, like half the damage and all that. So the iconic image is Link, a young elf with yellow golden hair, long hair. And he's a twink, by the way. He's a twink, yeah.
Yeah.
And he has a sword called Master Sword. Not in the beginning, but in every game, he's got a Master Sword, which is the strongest sword ever, like that. And he's got a shield. And what you do is you explore the map, and every map...
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know this from watching the Smash Legend of Zelda map, but he has the Triforce of Courage.
I'll break all your pots and I best not hear your bitch. I've got the Triforce of Courage, bitch, so you better listen.
Yeah, the Triforce is something that you always have to gain in every game. Like, you don't have it in the beginning, but the Triforce, we're going to talk about that too. But as I was saying, what you do is you explore the map and you find dungeons and you have to solve the dungeons. And after you do every dungeon, you are given a new item or something, which is a part of the philosophy of Shigeru Miyamoto. He's like, he said in an interview that I was reading, he was like, every video game has to give you a sense of progress, a sense of achievement. Like, it has to make you feel like you've actually done something. You've become more than you were. So that's why in every Zelda game, when you reach the end of the game, you have a lot of abilities, a lot of items that you didn't have in the beginning. And they actually are made in a way that every part of the game, like in the first dungeon maybe, or in the first part of the world, there might be something that you need, an item that you get in the end of the game to open. So it makes these games replayable, and it when you return to that initial place that you started everything from, you're now a much more mature and knowledgeable person. It's a very fantastic thing to think about. Like today, it's a no-brainer. Every video game almost has it. But back then, he was actually inventing that, and that, I think that's a really, really amazing thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like having a good DM for Dungeons and Dragons, you know? He basically understood what makes one of them compelling, to say the least.
Yeah. So he's one of his design philosophies.
Yeah.
So basically, every Zelda game is like that. And the Triforce of courage and power and will and all that. It's a very...
If I remember correctly, Zelda, the girl, has the wisdom one, and Ganondorf has the power one, right?
You know, in every game, it's different. It's never the same. But usually, yes.
Oh, yeah. Nice. You see, I know stuff. I may only know them because of the porn parodies, but you know, I know them.
Oh God!
But it's between who? Like, is it Zelda and Ganon, or Link and Ganon? Maybe.
Ganondorf is basically the never-ending.
He's a Darth Vader. He's the Darth Vader.
Yeah, he's like always. He's not even Darth Vader, because Darth Vader dies once and that's it. He's just always reincarnating. He's always happening. Like, even Link and Zelda themselves aren't the same person. They're just recurring. They're literally a legend. Like, they are characters. They're archetypes. They're Jungian archetypes. Like, there's always going to be a Link, a Zelda, and a Ganondorf, even if the stories are 1,000 years apart.
Basically, they are the personification of their own Triforces.
Yeah.
Which, for those of you who don't know, are those three triangle things.
Golden
on the
triangles.
Side
That's
open up Google and type Triforce.
Yeah, basically every Zelda game, if you want to beat it, you gotta remake or repair or whatever the Triforce symbol, and that gives you an entrance to some wicked palace or whatever that Ganondorf has corrupted, and using that you can defeat him and all that.
Yeah. Another weird thing, I've read it somewhere, but unlike other sort of RPGs, I mean, nowadays we sort of unanimously, I think, we
associate RPG with XP and leveling.
No, I wanted to talk about something else, but we associate RPG with storytelling. RPG is the one with all of the stories and
side quests and all that.
Yeah, but I've read somewhere that is not the case for Legend of Zelda. In the Legend of Zelda, gameplay is more important than the story. Like, the gameplay mechanics are what makes the story. Like in Majora's Mask, you're going to need to finish it before this time period. In Ocarina of Time, it's the time.
You can't say that story isn't important, but yeah, gameplay is intertwined. It's integrated completely, and
I'm saying in comparison to other sort of RPGs like
the
Final
story
Fantasy,
isn't the greatest thing about it. Like, the story isn't the driving force behind it. Yeah, I agree. The game itself, the game elements are more important, which is, in my opinion, what makes this game a better game than many other RPG games that are mostly story oriented.
Well, if I may say myself personally, I kind of see it as a missed opportunity, actually, in contrast to Amira's, because the world of Hyrule and all that stuff is really interesting when you really get into it, and you have to dig deep and find a lot of stuff. But gameplay is always first for Nintendo games, and it's an unfortunate side effect, I guess, that so many great Nintendo games really don't have good stories. I mean, there are actually Legend of Zelda with good stories, which we are going to talk about one particular one later, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would really like a good story in Legend of Zelda, a Lord of the Rings kind of story.
I see. Well, then we disagree.
Yeah, definitely.
No, I'm just saying that I personally think that Nintendo games have enough story. Like, more than this, it would damage the gameplay. Less than this, it would be shit. So it's, I think, the sweet spot of storytelling, in my opinion.
I mean, to be honest, the only console I have is a Nintendo console. I have a Wii, but I never actually played.
In my opinion, shittiest Zelda games. Not that the game was bad, the controls were really bad. Like, the motion controls.
I've heard. And to be honest, the motion controls aren't the best in other games either. That's why a lot of them sort of just have you point the controller and use the sticks.
I mean,
so it's basically,
I think
I have not experienced a single good motion-based experience ever.
The Wii and 3D, not 3DS, DS and Wii era for the Legend of Zelda, in my opinion, are the darkest period, because Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword is Wii motion controls, and 2 DS games, the Phantom Hourglass and the Spirit Tracks, are on DS.
We are getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, no, it's okay. They have touch controls, and oh my god, they're awful. I was actually playing Phantom Hourglass last night. It was frustrating. I fucking hated those controls.
I mean, it was emulated, right? Because I played them on DS and they're
good. I was playing them on my 3DS. No, believe me, you gotta revisit them. The controls in battles and in dungeons, oh my god, they're fucking a headache. They're a headache personified in the form of a video game.
Well, I've never played a Zelda. Why the fuck am I here?
I don't know, because you're the co-host. We're gonna throw you away.
Anyways, let's talk about the best one, apparently, Legend of Zelda 2.
Or The Adventure of Link. Yeah, so after the first one, which was the staple genre of future Zelda games, Shigeru Miyamoto thought it would be a good idea to make The Legend of Zelda a side-scroller. And the only Zelda game that has a magic bar, and not the only one technically, because A Link Between Worlds kinda has it too, but it is definitely the only Zelda game that has a XP based leveling whatever. So you level up in this game. There's a lot of grinding you gotta do in this game. Like, you gotta spend like maybe 5-6 hours just grinding, defeating bullshit enemies, leveling up so that you can have a better time.
And it's really hard, by the way. Like, it's Dark Souls level.
And it's not hard. It's not Dark Souls hard in the sense that you can get good at it. It's hard because it's janky. It's hard because it's fucking bullshit. It's not well made, and it's.
Yeah.
Is it the one that kind of looks like Castlevania?
Yeah, it's a side scroller, and it has the lowest Metacritic or whatever you want to call it. Like, it has the lowest score of all the Zelda games, of all of them.
Oh. That's harsh.
Yeah, like almost all of them are above 19, and they are like at worst like 80 whatever, but this one is like 69 or 78 whatever. So it's the worst one.
I mean, to be fair, like Zelda games are always ahead of their time. This is very important because people didn't like some particular games at the time, like the Wind Waker.
Yeah, but the critics liked it. The critics liked that game.
Yeah, sure, but
people, we're getting into it.
I know the story.
Yeah, they were like, this is childish. They didn't like the art style. Yeah. So The Legend of Zelda 2 is a very, they stray into a completely different path, and it didn't pay off.
It's the black sheep of the family.
And they thankfully corrected course, and went back to their sanity, let's say, and they made A Link to the Past for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
And apparently, sort of laid the path that all of the Legend of Zelda games need to have a fucking pun in their name.
Yeah. I think that Legend of Zelda 1 is kind of a predecessor to A Link to the Past. But the Legend of Zelda, as we know today, the Legend of Zelda that is the Legend of Zelda, starts with A Link to the Past in 1991. So I think that 1991 is where and when Legend of Zelda and many consecutive video games that take a lot of inspiration from this game are born.
Again, I wouldn't know, so...
Yeah, because the first Legend of Zelda is really cryptic. You don't know anything. You just basically gotta play the whole thing with a walkthrough. Not that other Zelda games aren't like that, but the first one is just literally doesn't give you anything. And the reason is that Shigeru Miyamoto said that one of the inspirations for creating this game was the camping travels he had with his father. He would go to the woods and he would get lost, and he would use his imagination to make up bullshit, and that inspired him to make the Legend of Zelda. And the first one is like the game doesn't give you or tell you anything. You just gotta explore everywhere without a goal or without knowing what to get. And maybe back then that was a good idea, but later it's at least there are hints. You can get a sense of what's going on. The story is much better, and that starts with A Link to the Past.
But basically, you are saying that it's dated in a sense that it's obvious for what time period it was made.
Yeah, it's obvious that it's the harbinger of something, not it has reached maturity. It's like it's only budding,
Yeah, I understand. That's how I can understand.
Link to the Past is, I think, arguably the best one, besides the one that we're gonna talk
a lot of
later,
people consider it the best one.
It's first of all, it still holds up really well. Like, I played it, I think, last year on Switch on an emulator, and the gameplay loop is still fun, and the graphics are in particular really beautiful, and the whole Dark World Light World thing is it was novel for the time, but it still works. And
it's a complete game.
It's
a mature, complete game that you can enjoy even 20 years from now. It's a really good game.
Is that the one with the Shadow Link that copies all of your moves?
Yeah, exactly.
We have Shadow Link in many other places too, by the way. It's not limited to that. It's the start of Shadow Link,
I know that one from a porn parody, but we'll get to
that. And then we have shut up, Ali. We have Link's Awakening, which was released for Game Boy, and it was recently remade, like literally remade for Nintendo Switch. It was a really gorgeous looking game. If you haven't played it, and you have a Switch, I definitely recommend playing it. And this is also a really good game. And for Game Boy, this is a really big game. Like, Game Boy cartridges at first had very limited storage capacities, and what they did...
you have to imagine, Game Boy's flagship game was fucking Tetris.
Yeah, and the way they managed to actually use Game Boy to play this game is that the cartridges actually has more RAM and more hardware parts for the Game Boy. So basically, it's not just a game; it's literally a hardware upgrade for your Game Boy to play this game.
I mean, to be honest, and this is again kind of a tangent, but it's a thing that always interested me about Nintendo. Like, for example, Xbox and PS5, the Sony and Microsoft thing, they are the hardware manufacturers, and then there are a bunch of people who do the software, like Rockstar or CD Projekt Red or Bethesda, But Nintendo was always weird in a sense that it was like technology and the hardware and the software were always hand in hand.
Yeah, I always actually compare Nintendo to Apple in many ways, even in the asshole-ish ways, even in the wrong and bad ways. Like Nintendo, Disney, and Apple, I think share a lot of bad and good things. Like they are clean companies that don't spam the market. They try to maintain a minimum of quality for their products.
I don't agree with Disney on that because Disney does spam the market, but go ahead.
Older Disney, you're right. Now it's really shitty. Let's talk about Disney 20 years ago.
30 years
ago. 30 years.
In the 90s.
Yeah, exactly. 10 years ago is the 90s. 20 years ago is the 80s. In my mind. No, dude. I know. I'm joking.
Oh, yeah.
Because 90s is always 10 years ago. Anyhow, yeah, they are extremely, in a douchebag way, protective of their IPs. They don't let anyone, like if you make a fan-made whatever of anything, Nintendo is going to come after your ass and they're going to hunt you. But, their products are good.
To be honest, again, Disney had the worst kind of stuff there because they fucked up the copyright system so bad that we are actually is still feeling the ripples of that effect.
I think I will always have a love-hate relationship with these companies because there are some parts of them that I really love and they have influenced my life in an undefinable way. Yeah. And there are always some things that I fucking hate them for, and they have also impacted my life in irreparable ways.
I mean, that is true for almost any sort of I think company.
Yeah, but
because,
these are really big companies that had a significant impact on their respective, fields and industry.
Yeah, but at the same time, Nintendo is one of the worst consumer friendly.
Yeah, exactly. Like
companies out there. The fucking greedy bastards that will.
Yeah, like they killed Mario 2 days ago. They were like, okay, limited time. I don't know why. But a lot of Mario games were taken off the market because Nintendo is an asshole and wants to give scalpers a reason to shove up Super Mario 3D World All-Stars up your ass for thousands of dollars.
I mean, they want to sell them. I've heard it. It was a bundle for a year and they took it off so they can sell it separately.
Yeah, Nintendo shoving it up the ass.
Yeah.
Since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Anyhow, let's move on.
Sort of like Zelda.
Yeah. The next game, as Mohammad mentioned, many people consider A Link to the Past the best Zelda game. But this one, I think the majority of people, like, if you ask 100 Zelda fans, probably like 70 of them are going to say this is the best or at least most important Zelda game. I personally kind of agree and at the same time don't agree. But it's the first 3D Zelda game. It is the most influential, one of the most, along with Super Mario 64, the most influential 3D games, like that laid the foundation for all other 3D games. Like I was actually reading the Wikipedia page, like Rockstar Games founder, Ubisoft, a lot of gaming studios cite the first 3D Zelda and Mario games as the biggest inspirations to the video gaming industry. Anyhow, Ocarina of Time, which is in Metacritic the highest ranking, like the best score of all time, it has a 99% critical reviews. And
I mean, it also gave birth to a bunch of people who don't know how to play the ocarina too.
Oh yeah. It raised awareness about the existence of a musical instrument called an ocarina.
Which is not a good musical instrument. I'm sorry, people, but it sounds like shit.
And if you want to cover seven octaves, you gotta have 7 ocarinas. Only 1 octave is covered in a single ocarina.
You know, it's sort of like I kind of blame Bob Dylan for the reoccurrence or the repopulation of harmonicas, and which is another instrument I kind of hate. But come on, it doesn't sound good, and please don't start.
You hate the instrument that is associated with Westerns the most. This is irony at its finest, ladies and gentlemen.
I mean, to be honest, Once Upon a Time in the West and the harmonica character, the harmonica that he plays is not just harmonica, it's harmonica and violin.
Yeah.
Morricone actually added violin in that because he knew harmonica by itself is not a very good instrument. But yeah, I understand the irony of it, but it's not my hatred for ocarinas come mostly from listening to covers. You know, people cover Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah using ocarinas. And all of them are people with like Link tattoos or the Triforce tattoos. And I just know where they got the inspiration. I know who to blame.
Of course. Although Ocarina first appears, I think, in Link's Awakening or maybe A Link to the Past, I'm not sure. But but having it in the title and having it as a major piece in the gameplay starts with Ocarina of Time 1998. That was the killer app or killer game of Nintendo 64.
By the way, that's the year that also Metal Gear Solid came, and I think Half-Life or its expansion pack.
So that's a monumental year.
What year was it?
98. It is often cited as one of the most important video game years ever.
Windows 98.
I was 1.
I was 3.
2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Just doxed ourselves. A remake of Ocarina of Time was released for Nintendo 3DS. The one that I have actually played for Nintendo 3DS, it has much better graphics, believe me. I mean, I love Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, but the textures, oh my god, they look like shit. Pure unadulterated shit. Really look bad.
I mean, I'm going to play the devil's advocate because I've seen gameplay videos of both of them, both Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask because Angry Video Game Nerd did a whole episode on it, and I watched that. And Ocarina of Time because, of course, everybody has seen gameplay videos. And I have a soft spot for that sort of blocky, textureless graphics. Maybe because it reminds me of games that I liked when I was growing up.
Seriously, they look really bad. But thankfully,
I mean, but they are charming because one of the games that I actually really like is Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind.
I think it's worse than that. I mean, like Final Fantasy VII, I find that style of graphics charming, but Ocarina of Time, it's just really hard to look at.
It depends on the taste.
It's personal. It comes down to personal taste, preference.
We've talked about it before, not on the YASP, but me and Amir are on a different occasion. But my favorite Stronghold game is Stronghold 2, and I find the isometric graphics of Stronghold 1 and Crusader annoying, and Amireza on the other side likes them better than the early 3D.
Because I have more memories with them.
Yeah, and I have more memories. Even though we are 1 year apart.
2 years, but yeah.
Fuck you, it's 1 year. I'm born at the beginning of 1997. You're at the end of 1995.
Nevertheless, anyhow, let's move on. After Ocarina of Time, let's talk about Ocarina of Time a little more. So it was the first 3D Zelda game, and with it was Z targeting. That was also revolutionary. Like you can lock on targets. I think that wasn't done before Zelda, or wasn't done as good or as importantly as is in the Ocarina of Time game.
Technically, there's the automatic system in Resident Evil, but it really doesn't count for reasons that are obvious, because you don't choose the target you're automatically pointing at. But Zelda is important.
Yeah,
in that
an open world sandbox 3D game that you can do whatever you want. You can skip a lot of parts. That was really influential. Like maybe even Grand Theft Auto 3. Actually, in the Wikipedia page, the Dan Houser, creator of Grand Theft Auto, he's like, GTA 3, Zelda meets Goodfellas.
I mean, it meets a Scarface, but they're literally referencing Scarface.
Yeah,
learn your games, creator.
Yeah.
And but quick question: isn't Resident Evil after Ocarina of
Resident
Time?
Evil 1? I don't know.
No, OG RA came 96, which again, it was its 25th anniversary just a couple of days ago. March something, yeah.
You mean 25th or 35th?
25th.
Oh, okay.
While we're on the subject of the Ocarina of Time, by the way, there's a lot of speedrunning for Ocarina of Time. There's a speedrunning for all Zelda games, especially Wind Waker, Ocarina of Time, and Breath of the Wild. But, Ocarina of Time. Zelda games also have these things called randomizers. For those of you who don't know, randomizers are things like, they're basically ROM hacks. And what are ROM hacks? Like, they take the source code of the game, not the source code, and the code of the game, and they randomize. Like, for instance, you're a person who has finished this Ocarina of Time 10 times, so you're getting bored of it. You get a randomizer, and the randomizer gives you the ability to randomize basically everything in the game. Like, your character isn't Link, it's, I don't know, whatever, it's Zelda. And the items you get are different, the dungeons are different. And Ocarina of Time had a Master Quest version released for GameCube, which is a much more sophisticated, much richer version of the game. So there's also that. After Ocarina of Time, you have Majora's Mask. This is a game that many people claim to be the creepiest or the darkest.
It's a really weird one. Like, the whole plot is just cool and weird at the same time.
Yeah,
I've seen the moon thing that looks like an angry guy.
Even the story is really...
Yeah, if you're a kid and you play that, you aren't going to sleep. Yeah.
I mean, it's a joke for like 2 minutes ago, but you said you're not Link, you're Zelda. And I wanted to say that maybe you're Link finally realizing that you were Zelda all along.
Yeah, but that was an instance. Like, you can be anything. You can be a Doku 3. You can be Dampé, for instance. Dampé is a gravedigger. He's a recurring character in almost every Zelda game, and he's like a...
Who is that guy who is like the cosplays as a fairy?
Cosplays as a fairy.
The fairy is called Navi, Navi. I remember right, which is the abbreviation for navigation.
No, the guy who wears the green suit and is like a 35-year-old cosplayer in the lore of the game.
I think you mean Tingle.
Yeah.
And Tingle is in Wind Waker.
That's a weird fucking dude.
Yeah. After Majora's Mask, we have Oracle of Seasons and Ages released for, I believe, Game Boy Color. Yeah. I haven't played any of them yet.
By the way, those are actually not Nintendo games. They're Capcom games.
Oh, really? Nice.
Published by Nintendo, yeah. It's one of the few collaborations that actually worked, in contrast to the Philips CDI ones. These ones are actually good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean Philips CDI ones, I've seen them. I've seen videos of them. And I think everyone have. They are kind of memes now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
After Oracle of Seasons and Ages, which I haven't played, but I know that if you finish Oracle of Seasons and you transfer save data to Ages, you get like bonus items and all that. Like it becomes like a new game plus. You have certain things to start with. We have 4 Swords released for Nintendo DS. I haven't played this one either. I think this was a multiplayer one, the first multiplayer Zelda game. You could link.
For DS, I think you're misreading.
I think it's DS.
Because DS wasn't out at the time.
This game was released on...
Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know.
It was released... Let me see. Oh yeah, it's for Game Boy Advanced. Yeah, sorry. It's for Game Boy Advanced. And it is multiplayer portion of the cartridge. Okay,
yeah,
4 Swords gameplay.
Co-op game. And it actually had a sequel to on GameCube. It's 4 Swords.
Yeah, A Link to the Past was released for Game Boy Advance, and it had a 4 Swords section that is the multiplayer section for it. So you could use the links, like the wires you could use on your Game Boys, and you could play this.
I thought you meant like literally sword play, like
no, like you
not
could,
real.
For those of you who don't know, swordplay is a exclusively male-oriented sport where you take out your dicks.
Oh my god, please. Okay. Next is the favorite Zelda game of me and Mohammad. It's called The Wind Waker. It was released for GameCube, and it was met with a really, really, really critical fan reaction. Like the fans hated this game. They were looking at Sony games and Xbox games. They were having Halo and I don't know, mature games. And this game aged fantastically. Let's say that. Like this game will always look good because it's like a cartoon. It's a cel shade graphics. But back in the day, fans were pissed off. They were like, "What is this young kid Link in this cartoonish world?" But the critics actually liked it. Critics liked it and gave it a 96.
The only thing I know about this game, Wind Waker, is I watched a video by Stutson Studio, he made the boat, the dragon boat, which
Red Lion, I think. Yeah.
The head talks apparently. Yeah. And he's a dragon.
I think it's called Red Lion or something. Yeah.
Wind Waker is really unique, it's kind of the only game that doesn't have Zelda, kind of.
Yeah, kind of doesn't have Zelda.
We're not going to spoil it.
Yeah, we're not going to spoil it. And
so, okay, if it doesn't have Zelda, then who's,
Okay, we're not going to spoil it.
Whose nether regions is Link trying to get into?
Oh my god. His grandma. His grandma. By the way, when we're talking,
the sea is really fantastic.
Yeah,
sorry,
the exploration is fantastic.
I just want to see. Yeah, it's like we're actually talking about this the other day, me and Ali. Why don't we have enough pirate games and games that we pass time to see? Wind Waker is a really, really, really awesome one.
Yeah.
Terms of that
sea exploration for 2002 is fantastic. Like I can't imagine being a kid and playing this game. It would have been the best thing in the world. Sadly, I didn't have it in GameCube.
I mean, you could wait like 3-4 years and Sid Meier's Pirates would have come out.
I did play that, but this is a different kind of exploration. It's just fantastic. Every little island has its own thing, and you got a sea chart.
I just wanted to mention.
Yes, Sid Meier's.
Wanted to mention Sid Meier's Pirates, which is a great game I haven't played before. Yeah. I played it recently.
It was later in 2013 released. The HD version was released for Wii U. That's the one I'm playing on an emulator called Semu for Wii U games. I really like that.
Fingers crossed it's gonna come to Switch. If not, then fuck you, Nintendo.
Nintendo will definitely release it for the Switch. There's money to be made. Then we have
with an $80 price tag assholes.
Yeah, we have Four Swords Adventure. I'm not sure if this is different from Four Swords, but you get the idea.
That's a sequel,
you get the idea.
For the first game.
Then we have the Minish Cap for the Game Boy Advance. I think this is one of the best looking Zelda games ever. I really, really, really like how this game looks. I'm in love with the way it looks. Like, it's the Wind Waker for me. It's the Wind Waker of the handheld versions. It's really fantastic.
I mean, is this the one where Link, cross-dresses as a girl?
That is Link's Breath of the Wild, I think you're talking about.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
No, this is in 2004. This is Game Boy Advance.
I have some thoughts on that one.
I haven't finished this game. I've barely played it for like an hour, so I don't have anything to say about it. But the Minish Cap is like literally the name suggests. He has a cap that he can shrink to a very small size and do stuff.
So it's a shrinking cap?
After...
Okay, there's a dick joke there, but I'm not going to say it.
After that, after the bad response from fans, then they wanted a grown-up, they wanted a mature, they wanted a emotionally entangling Legend of Zelda. Twilight Princess was released for GameCube and Wii, and it was later, the HD version was released for Wii U. Twilight Princess is, artistically speaking and story-wise speaking, everything that the Wind Waker wasn't. It's mature. The world is like crass and the world is dark, and it's the game is just trying to be serious. It's trying to be edgy. Like, it's trying to be too dark. Like, there's the dark world that is like full of dark entities, and Link turns into a wolf sometimes. In many ways, it actually reminds me of the Okami game.
There is this the one with the Yeti that makes a soup for his wife?
Yeti that makes a soup? I'm not sure.
I don't think it's this one. I think it's Skyward, but don't quote me on that.
I don't know.
Because
I haven't finished this yet. I'm only 4 or 5 hours into this one.
There is a thing. I don't know if you guys watch Eurogamer. But Johnny Chiodini on Eurogamer used to have a series called Chiodini's Kitchen, where he makes stuff from video games.
Yeah,
and I think I saw that there. I'm not sure. I'm actually looking at it right now, trying to find it. There are a lot of stuff from Breath of the Wild, but it's Yeto's superb soup from Zelda Twilight Princess.
Nice. Okay then, I haven't reached that place yet.
Yeah, just saying, all of my knowledge about Zelda comes from weird place.
Twilight Princess has a very slow and tedious start. Like, it bores you to death. You get haired goats or whatever. It's just bullshit. And the kids, if you look at both this Zelda and Skyward Sword that were released for Wii, these games I think really look ugly and they don't age good. It's just even Ocarina of Time looks better than these. Not the graphics, I mean the art style. Just the kids in these games are like nightmares. Just look at the kids in Twilight Princess. You want to kill yourself. After Twilight Princess, we have 2 DS games, which in my opinion are shit, because the games are good. The controls are shit. Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. Like, everything is touch in these games. You also got to use the mic sometimes. They are
nice. That gimmick.
These are gimmicky games. Like, they are built around the device. They aren't games that would have existed without DS. And oh my god, do I hate them because of the controls. Like, they're really frustrating. You can't navigate the dungeons properly. There are a lot of traps. You fall off places. You can't attack enemies correctly. It just gives you a headache every goddamn time. I haven't played Skyward Sword that came after these games in 2011 for Wii, but I think we can all agree that it also has bad controls. When even in the reveal, Shigeru Miyamoto was struggling to do certain things in this game. It was a fucking massacre that showcase.
I mean,
I vividly remember that. It was not, let's just say it was not the best moment for the creator of such legendary series.
Yeah. And even Spielberg was there, actually. He was there to try the new game. And oh my God, there are pictures of Miyamoto and Spielberg. And I think none of them had a good time.
Well, I mean, you got to learn somehow.
I think it's a really bad selling game too. Like Phantom Hourglass, a DS game, sold 4.76 million copies. Skyward Sword sold 3.67, like 67. Like that's a really bad number for Wii that has sold like 100 million devices. I think it's a really bad number.
I mean, to be honest, I think that was the hype of this is a motion control thing and all of that. Because to be honest, as I said, I do have a Wii, and it's not a good console.
To put this in perspective, The Legend of Zelda 2 sold 4 million copies. That's for Nintendo Entertainment System. And in 2011, Skyward Sword sold only 3 million. That's disaster.
Yeah. What comes after that? What comes after Skyward?
After that is A Link Between Worlds. Actually, I'm one dungeon shy of finishing it. I was playing it last night on my 3DS. It's a 3DS game. It's a really, really good game. It's a spiritual and not so spiritual successor to A Link to the Past. Like this game also has two worlds, like low rule and high rule. It's a really good
by
game.
the way, sorry, before we pass Skyward Sword, but there is there's going to be an HD port on
Switch.
Just to mention.
Yeah, and it's not just going to be HD. They're actually going to enable you to play the game without motion controls. Thank God for that. But even that, I have a sense that I'm going to hate this game because of the controls. Not that it's a bad game, that it hasn't got good dungeons, but I'm just going to hate it because of the controls.
I mean, if it comes out before our last episode of the season, you can play it and give your,
but
thoughts then.
I don't think so. I think it's going to take longer than that. But anyways,
anyway.
We're going to try that. After that, we have Triforce Heroes for 3DS. I think this is also another multiplayer version. I haven't played this one either. I don't know. I have nothing to say about
the one with Tecmo, the one that's like Dynasty Warriors?
No, that's
Hyrule, whatever.
Hyrule Warriors. That's Hyrule Warriors. This is this is multiplayer. This is also multiplayer for Nintendo 3DS. I have it on my 3DS, but I haven't played it yet. And after that is the most famous one. It sold 23 million copies. That's a lot of copies. That's almost twice the copies of Ocarina of Time.
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, and this is the one that many players, like I've seen a lot of people that have only played this. You tell them Zelda and they think every Zelda game is this one. But this is like a new chapter in the book of Zelda. Like this is nothing like the previous Zeldas in any way.
I mean, is this the one where Link cross-dresses as
this is
Arabic-inspired girl?
Yep, this is the one.
There are actually a lot of great fan arts of that. I suggest you search them.
Oh my God.
Is it connected to Rule 34 or is it just...
Yes, exactly. It's definitely... Does anything at least say not have anything to do with Rule 34 of the internet?
I mean, to be honest, and I'm kind of meaning it in a not so ironic way, but it's the first one where I've actually watched a lot of, in preparation for this podcast, I watched a lot of Zelda porn.
Thank you. You could have played some of them.
I couldn't because they need an emulator, and I don't like emulators. And
oh God.
Now, to be honest, it's actually the ones for the Breath of the Wild and the one where Link cross-dresses are some of the more creative ones. I think it's one of the things that the other ones lacked.
Yeah, sure.
What, in cross-dressing?
Okay, let's talk about the music. I don't want to talk about that. Let's talk about the music in Zelda games. I think the Zelda music, Zelda and music and Zelda's theme music and Zelda's sound effects, like Whenever you solve a puzzle, there's a not that, but like,
isn't that the one where you open a chest?
Yeah, that's, and whenever he opens the chest, Link like raises his hand and shows the item. That has a distinctive sound effect. Whenever you solve a puzzle, that has a sound effect.
I mean, I've also know the one when he sort of attacks with his sword. It's ha, ha, ha.
No, that's his voice. I'm talking about the sound effects. And Zelda games all have fantastic soundtrack, in my opinion. And one of the things that distinguishes Breath of the Wild from the rest is that it kind of doesn't have a soundtrack. So Breath of the Wild is a really lonely game. If you have played Shadow of Colossus and Shadow of Colossus, you're a really lonely person in those games. And I think Breath of the Wild is one of the loneliest games I've ever played in my life. Like, in every part of this game, you're alone. There's no music. You're wandering. Like, this is a one of the most sandbox open world games I've played. And in this game, you're really alone. Like, you don't have anyone. Most of the time, you're in mountains, in swamps, in waters, in deserts, without anyone but enemies, and you don't know where to go. I think this is a fantastic experience in that regard.
Yeah, I think it's flawed, but it was really a brave step in so many regards for Nintendo to go the way they did in Breath of the Wild. And I think the flaws kind of ruined the experience for me. Kind of. I don't know about you, Amir. Weapon durability, obviously.
Weapon durability is one of those controversial things. Like, many people are like, what the fuck is that? I personally, I don't know. I think they were at a like fork in the road between deciding if they want to add leveling to this game or not add leveling, but something that is like leveling. And I think in the crossroads, they decided not to add leveling, but do something that it kind of makes up for not having leveling. And they came up with the bricking system. Many people don't like it. I personally didn't hate it that much. And I'm still fine with it, kind of, especially when you get the Master Sword. It kind of doesn't break ever. You just...
you just have to charge it.
Yeah, it has to recharge. But yeah, many people don't like it. And in many ways, this is the first really totally open world game ever. Like, you can play this game and you can just get out of the shrines. Like, in the game, all you have to do is wake up, do 3 shrines, and then fight the final boss. Like, you can do that in, like, I don't know, an hour. No other game I know gives you this freedom.
By the way, watch speedruns of Breath of the Wild, definitely, because there's a really good animation parody if you haven't seen.
I have not. I was talking about the weapon breaking thing. I think it's more of a survival game gimmick that I also kind of hate when games do it.
Yeah, you're right. It actually is kind of a survival game. You're alone, surrounded by enemies. There's also the cooking mechanism introduced in this game. That's kind of fun. Like, you can find recipes. You can cook. If you cook like horns of monsters, the food is like a checkerboarded because it looks really bad, but it still gives you health. Yeah,
I've heard of that cooking system. I actually, and this is kind of another one of my gripes with the gaming industry, I do need a good cooking game, like
Overcooked.
Come on, Nintendo.
Yeah.
No. The game that makes you like develop recipes and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
There's this game called Quick Serve Delicious, which I don't think it's what you're looking for, but it's okay.
I mean, the nearest thing we had was Cooking Simulator, but that is one of those Unity simulation games, which is, not good. I'm just saying, Nintendo, if you make a good cooking game that is like you are a chef, you're developing recipes and all of that.
You will buy a Nintendo Switch?
I will not, but I will take Mohammed's Nintendo Switch and play it.
The Nintendo will definitely do that for you.
Let's assign a hashtag. Let's make a cooking game.
Okay. That's all the games. After that is Link's Awakening remake, which we talked about. It's all an isometric top-down view. So I think that's all the Zelda games.
Sequel though.
Breath of the Wild 2.
If they fix, those few problems that I had.
That's one of the most anticipated games, not just by Nintendo fans, but by every gamer.
Probably.
I mean, not by me. I'm looking forward to Elder Scrolls 6 Hammerfell.
Yeah, well, that's a big thing too. Pun intended.
You're not gonna play it because it's a Microsoft exclusive.
Yeah.
Microsoft exclusives are for PC, so.
Yeah.
Not your PC.
Yeah, not my PC. Damn, that was savage.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. No, I agree with you.
Oh, some gameplay elements in Zelda games we didn't talk about. The heart pieces, like it has rubies. The currency in the game is rubies. We have green and blue, red.
Not rubies, it's rupees.
Rupee. Oh yeah, rupees.
Yeah,
it's actually, I think, it's a currency of India, if I'm not mistaken.
Or maybe it was in the past. I'm not sure. So you break vases and all that vases. I don't know what to pronounce it. So you break them. You can also cut grass, and there's a lot of rupees in those. I don't know why. You have hook shots. You have gloves. You have like power gloves. You have boots that give you speed or make you get into the bottom of the ocean. You have a lot of items in each game that help you explore new places or solve different dungeons and puzzles.
I mean, as we talk, it's about the gameplay more than the story. So it's of course going to be some sort of a gimmick. I know that Mario, which is the one with the water gun.
Oh yeah, Mario Sunshine.
Yeah. So it's basically a game made around the.
No, these games aren't like that. These games have a lot of objects and items, I mean. And the way Link levels up in these games is you collect heart pieces, like every 4 heart pieces, or in some games 5 or 3 heart pieces, give you a new heart piece. Like you have hearts, literally like the old games. And in the Breath of the Wild, instead of heart pieces, every shrine you do, you're given an orb. And when you pray to certain statues, you can use those orbs to either fill up your, raise your stamina. Stamina was introduced in Skyward Sword, if I'm not mistaken. Before that, we didn't have stamina in Zelda games. But in Breath of the Wild, you have a lot of climbing. It's like an Assassin's Creed game. You can climb anything. But you have a certain amount of stamina that goes out if you swim a lot or fly a lot. Oh, the gliding is also new to Breath of the Wild. I think we didn't have anything. We kind of did have gliding in Wind Waker, but the gliding in Breath of the Wild is really different from that.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a question I have to ask because in my head, Legend of Zelda and Mario, two Nintendo big guys. I know there are others like Kirby and
Donkey Kong,
Animal Crossing, and Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Mario and his ensemble have a lot of fucking spin-offs. You have Luigi's Mansion, you have Mario, you have the Donkey Kong, you have all of that.
Mario Party, Mario Paper, Mario Kart.
Yeah.
Well, Zelda is in Mario Kart. But it's not Zelda Kart, it's Mario Kart. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, does Zelda have that sort of stuff too? Like, I don't know, Tingles, a spin-off game.
I don't think so, no.
I mean, again, Nintendo's kind of entering that phase because, you know, there was this those Hyrule Warrior games, which are actually not bad. I just played the demo of the second one, and it's kind of good.
Calamity. Age of Calamity is basically built in the engine and in the world of Breath of the Wild, and it's the events that happen 100 years, because in Breath of the Wild, Link wakes up after 100 years, and in Age of Calamity, it's a Warriors game. It's a warrior game. If you haven't played a warrior game, look up Dynasty Warriors or things like that. They're really massive, ridiculously messy, panic attacky games. But the graphics and all that are Breath of the Wild-ish.
Oh, so we are getting
they're moving that way. Yeah, capitalism. If you make money, then it's all right.
Yeah, I will not buy a Switch, but I will play it if they make one of those like Link cross-dresser spin-offs.
They will never do that. I'm pretty sure about that. But I'm pretty sure there are a lot of online Flash-like games for that.
I mean, now to be honest, online games are using RPG Maker, which is the Zelda games. I'm not even kidding or anything. There are a lot of indie pornographic games that use RPG Maker.
Okay.
Is it enjoyable?
I think we should wrap up this episode. Oh my God, please have this conversation after the recording. We talked about every Zelda game. We talked about its influence, its gameplay mechanics, what makes them special.
Yes.
Why we
talked
love
about D&D.
We talked about D&D, Shigeru Miyamoto, the TV show. Yeah, so if there's anything you two guys think we missed, let's talk about them and wrap up this session.
I mean, I don't know anything. My only thing is the porn, which I talked about enough.
More than enough. You shouldn't have talked about it at all, but you did.
Yes. And Mohammad, what about you? Is there anything you want to talk about that you think we missed?
They're good games. It might seem overwhelming at first. 35 years over, 30-something games, but you can cherry pick some, start them, see if you enjoy them, and if you do, there are a lot more where that came from.
Yeah, but just do know that Breath of the Wild is really different from the other ones. Like, even isometric and 3D games are basically the same game with different camera angles, but Breath of the Wild is a really different approach to Zelda.
Yeah.
Actually, I wanted to talk about something that Mohammad mentioned. There is a reason I don't play Final Fantasy games, and I find them overwhelming. I cannot enter that mindset that, okay, I want to play the Final Fantasy game, because it's like a world that I need to enter in a very weird way.
But no, Zelda is not like that, because Final Fantasy also has characters and story that is you kind of need to know about. But in Legend of Zelda, every game has its own story. Even if you don't know anything about other games, you're okay. And actually, one thing we forgot to talk about is the timeline of Zelda, because Zelda has 3 timelines. Actually,
I know about that, but please no.
No. Just to mention, like Zelda 1, Zelda 2, A Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, and after that, you got 2 different timelines, and then it becomes 3, and then they all come together. Breath of the Wild is then again all of them coming back to 1. So yeah,
it's the last one, basically.
No, please no.
But the parallel universes, in one of the universes, Zelda dies, Link dies, I think. In one of them, he doesn't die. In one of them, the world is submerged in water. All of them have different things. You just look it up, play them. But yeah, the timeline in Zelda games are messed up.
Yeah, I mean, they take a page out of Fox's X-Men timeline strategy.
Yeah, and also
maybe a bit more consistent.
Yeah.
It's every Zelda game. I think every Zelda game, at some point you're gonna have to look at a walkthrough. Like I haven't played a single Zelda game without looking at a walkthrough. Maybe that's a good thing.
Maybe you are
that's
not a good enough gamer. Have you thought about that?
I have thought about that too, but I think majority of people will have to at some point look at a walkthrough.
It was a fucking sarcastic comment.
Yeah. So there's that.
So I say that we should do the ever so important outro that if we don't die,
or if
we feel like it,
we'll definitely
see you again next episode. Yes. And
the next episode is South Park, right?
Yes, the next episode is South Park.
That might become 3 hours.
I will personally attack our guests if it becomes 3 hours.
I mean, this one we're trying for 30 minutes and an hour and a half into it.
Well, yeah, but you know, this you have to edit
versus reality.
And even in this hour and a half, I feel like we could have at least talked for 3 more hours, but we didn't have time.
Yeah. I mean, the difference is the biggest difference is that you are going to edit this one.
Yeah.
I have to edit that one. So, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of me being an asshole.
I won't be that Amireza, but make it as long as possible.
Sure.
Okay. So, live long and prosper. See you on our next episode.
Later.
We want to thank you for listening to our podcast. We want to thank you for listening to our shitty podcast. Yet another shitty podcast. We are deeply happy inside that you don't have anything better to do. Don't waste your time here with us. Yes. Yet another shitty podcast. Shitty podcast. Thank you for listening to our podcast.
Okay, so let's tell Quake to leave.